Let's talk about India's cities. They're this incredible story of, well, unfinished promise. On one hand, they are these massive engines of growth. But for millions of people, they're also a source of daily frustration. You know, the endless commutes, the spotty services, and that nagging feeling that things could be so much better. So today, we're going to dive into this and figure out what it would take to make India's cities truly work for everyone. To really get a handle on the opportunity here, you have to start with this big idea. The economist Edward Glaeser famously said that cities are humanity's greatest invention. And you know what? He's got a point. When you bring lots of people together in one place, something almost magical happens. It sparks new ideas, creates better jobs, and just drives progress. This isn't just some academic theory. It's the fundamental reason why cities even exist. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. India is at the absolute epicenter of this whole urbanization story. I mean, just look at this slide. The 10 fastest growing cities on the entire planet between 2019 and 2035, they are all in India. Every single one. We're talking about Surat, Bengaluru, Hyderabad. This is where the urban future is happening. The potential is just massive. And that brings us to the central puzzle of this whole explainer, what I like to call India's big city paradox. If these cities are so huge and growing so incredibly fast, why haven't they become the kind of globally dominant economic powerhouses you might expect? There's this huge gap between how many people live there and how much they punch above their weight on the world stage. Right, so here's the thing. You've got these megacities like Mumbai and Delhi, giants in terms of population, no doubt. But their economic clout just doesn't quite measure up to other global players like a Shanghai, a London, or New York. And the reason is pretty simple, but also really complicated. The basic infrastructure and the systems of governance just haven't been able to keep up with the explosive growth. It kind of waters down all the benefits you're supposed to get from that density. So, to start solving this puzzle, we've got to ask a really basic question first. Are we even seeing the picture clearly? Our first clue is all about how we measure what a city even is. And it turns out, we might be seriously undercounting what's really happening on the ground. Okay, so this is a fascinating comparison. The official census from 2011 says India is about 31% urban. But, and this is a huge but, when researchers use modern tools like satellite data to see where people are actually living and building, they get a totally different picture. By 2015, they estimated India was already 63% urban. That is more than double the official number. So India isn't just urbanizing, it's already way more urban than we've been led to believe. And this right here shows you exactly what that looks like. These are maps of Delhi at night, seen from space. On the left is 2012, and on the right is 2023. That bright red area, that's the dense urban core. But look at all that yellow. That's the city just spilling out into the surrounding areas. The growth in just one decade is incredible. The city is literally overflowing its official borders. And it's not just Delhi. Let's jump over to Mumbai. And bam, it's the same story. The red core is still there, but look how that yellow fringe has just exploded outwards. This really confirms a critical point. All this new growth is happening on the edges, in these so-called peri-urban areas that are often outside the control of the main city government. Now, let's zoom out from a single city to a whole state. The case of Kerala is honestly mind-blowing. Using this same kind of analysis, you can see a complete transformation. Those red and yellow areas have just massively expanded. It reveals this vast, interconnected urban corridor, a ribbon of towns and cities all blending together. It shows that so much of what is functionally urban exists way outside what we traditionally call a city. So if India is so much more urban than we thought, what's holding it back? Well, this brings us to our second and probably most important clue, the governance gridlock. The problem isn't a lack of people or economic buzz, it's a lack of empowered, coordinated leadership at the city level. So who actually runs an Indian city? The honest answer is, it's really complicated. Power is completely fragmented. You have the elected city council, sure, but then you also have state-run development authorities and various other agencies that control all the important stuff like land, water, and transport. The results? No single person, not even the mayor, has the power to actually create and execute a clear vision for the city. And all that fragmentation leads to a critical weakness, money. Indian cities have remarkably little power to raise their own funds. This chart says it all. The money cities raise themselves is just 0.15% of India's GDP. Compare that to other developing countries, or especially to cities in the OECD, which are pulling in 2 to 4%. This means Indian cities are almost totally dependent on handouts from the state, which completely kills their ability to act independently. And this quote just nails it. Global cities are out there on the world stage, competing for talent and investment. But because Indian cities don't have financial or administrative power, they act more like branch offices for the state government. They're built to comply with orders, not to think and act strategically for themselves. So let's connect the dots. How does this kind of abstract governance problem create the very real physical bottlenecks that we all experience every single day? And more importantly, how do we break this deadlock and finally unlock our city's true potential? We start with a concept that sounds a bit dramatic, but it's crucial: dead capital. All it means is that you have valuable assets, in this case urban land, that are basically locked up. They can't be used productively because of bad regulations or confusing ownership. So you have land, the most valuable asset in any city, that's effectively dead. It can't be developed, it can't be sold, it can't be used to grow the economy. And here is one of the most powerful examples of that in action. Floor Space Index, or FSI, is just a fancy term for how much you're allowed to build on a piece of land. Now, look at this comparison. Mumbai has a base FSI of around 1.3, New York is 15, Shanghai is 12. These incredibly low limits in India mean you can't build up. So what happens? The city is forced to sprawl outwards, which is way less efficient and drives up property prices for everybody. That horizontal sprawl leads directly to another massive headache: mobility. I mean, this image just says it all, doesn't it? Look at how many people you can move in the same amount of road space. A lane of cars might move 2,000 people an hour. A bus, 9,000. And a train, up to 80,000. It's a no-brainer. To work well, dense cities have to move people, not just cars. And the economic cost of getting this wrong is just staggering. One study estimated that traffic congestion in just 4 cities, Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru, and Kolkata, cost the economy $22 billion every single year. That's wealth that is just evaporating into exhaust fumes while people are stuck in traffic jams. So, here's the bottom line. We can build all the flyovers and all the metro lines we want, but if we don't fix the underlying problems, the broken governance, the bad lands laws, the weak city finances, we're just pouring concrete without getting the results we need. The infrastructure is important, of course, but it has to go hand in hand with deep, fundamental reform. Which leaves us with a big question at the end of all this. India's cities are absolutely brimming with energy, with talent, and with potential. We now know they are far bigger and more dynamic than we even realized. And the path to making them work isn't a mystery. It requires bold reforms in how they are governed and planned. So the real question is, can India make those tough choices needed to finally fulfill its city's incredible unfinished promise?